Welcome to the Seahawks Forever podcast. In-depth analysis on everything Seahawks. And now, here's your host, Dan Viens.
All right, guys, thought I would hop on really quick today live, at least on the YouTube channel. Apparently, as I was starting the stream, got notification that I can't go directly live on Twitter anymore without upgrading my paid membership. That doesn't make me happy, but that is beside the point. Anyway, apologize to those of you who follow me on Twitter for not being able to watch it there. According to Drew Rosenhaus, the agent for Connor Williams, formerly of the Miami Dolphins, Pro Bowl caliber center, is on the verge of signing with the Seahawks and is in what could be termed, at least according to Rosenhaus, as final negotiations. This news broke, just saw it for the first time about a half an hour ago, and to give credit where credit is due, the first account that I saw it on was Pro Football Rumors. Couldn't find it anywhere else, and then it started to make sense because the source of the news today comes from, want to give credit here, Joe Rose, who's a radio host at WQAM in Miami, has a daily podcast, and had Drew Rosenhaus on his show today because of the Tyreek Hill news. Represents him as well. And that was the emphasis for having him on the show in the first place. But then Rose asked Rosenhaus a question, wanted an update on how Williams was doing. And I'll play that for you here in a second. But just to recap, it was reported 2 weeks ago that Rosenhaus was visiting the Seahawks in Seattle. I believe it was 2 Mondays ago. And passed his physical. And this is key. Just to recap, Williams taken in the second round by the Dallas Cowboys in 2018, pick number 50 overall out of the University of Texas. Had positional versatility, but even played some tackle at Texas. Played mostly left guard in Dallas. Suffered a torn ACL his second year in the league. Came back from that, became the full-time starter at left guard with the Cowboys. But then left in free agency after his rookie deal was up and signed a 2-year deal with the Miami Dolphins. I believe the total value at the time was $22 million for 2 years. The Dolphins moved him back to center, and that's where he blossomed. And in fact, last year was grading out by most metrics as one of the top centers in the NFL at both pass block efficiency, run blocking, and overall was top 10, if not top 5 in all of those categories. He is a different kind of animal than what the Seahawks currently have on their roster. He is bigger and more athletic. 6'5", 317 pounds, graded out at a 9.5 relative athletic score. As much as we still quite don't know what Ryan Grubb and Scott Huff want to do with the Seahawks offense, are they going to go more gap? Are they going to go more outside zone? This would indicate that they want to move their guys around a little bit more. So at the time, it was reported that he passed his physical, that negotiations had begun. Again, the source for this was Adam Schefter, who is very tight with Drew Rosenhaus and gets information from him. There were other teams involved, and the negotiations would continue. And then it's been crickets for the last 2 weeks, other than there was one report from a local reporter in Miami that said it was money was the issue, that Williams may be wanting to get paid close to what he thought he was going to get paid on the open market if he hadn't hurt that ACL again late last season against Tennessee Titans while playing for the Dolphins. That, it's understandable. Teams are going to want some guarantees or some protections, and the player is obviously going to want some protections as well, or at least try to cash in on what he thought he would have earned in the open market had he not gotten hurt. Just 27 years old, just turned 27 in May. These guys don't become available too often. But before I get into this with a little bit more analysis, I want to play you the actual clip from the Joe Rose podcast on what Rosenhaus said today, because the initial report made it sound like Seattle was the only option and they were zeroing in on each other. Rosenhaus hedges a little bit. Listen to that here.
Is Connor, is he healthy and is he close to signing with somebody?
Yeah, he is healthy. He absolutely is. He's in negotiations with the Seahawks, and there's a few other teams, and I wouldn't be surprised if Connor signs within the next 48 to 72 hours. It's a wonderful development for Connor, who had a heartbreaking injury in the Titans Monday night game. He was on his way to a Pro Bowl season and a lucrative contract extension, tore his ACL, and this guy fought so hard, we weren't even sure if he was going to play this year, and now he's going to be ready to play in the first game of the season. It's probably, in my career, without a doubt, one of the greatest comebacks I've ever seen.
Quite a bit to unpack there. He says he's in negotiations with the Seahawks. He does say there are some other teams, quote, end quote. Doesn't say that he's negotiating with. Could just be that other teams have checked in on, that they could turn to if negotiations don't go the way that they like. He says that he anticipates getting something done within the next 48 to 72 hours. Says he's ready to play week 1, that it's a miraculous recovery. Now, some other people have followed up since then. Corbin Smith, friend of the show, chimes in just a few moments ago on his Twitter account, at Corbin Smith NFL, adding to this, per a source, it would be a major surprise if Williams is not a Seahawk by the end of this week. They're still hashing out guaranteed money, and it's looking like a multi-year pact with the cap situation. Now, that makes sense. The Seahawks currently have about $10 million in cap space after redoing Julian Love's deal last week. When I first heard reports, when it was reported that he was in Seattle and passed the physical, I thought, okay, 1-year deal. The player would want that. The team would want that. John Schneider loves to do 1-year deals, especially with kind of, I was going to say mid-level, but that's not the case because Williams is a much better player than that. But players on their second contract who are out there in free agency, good quality players who are kind of looking for an opportunity to reestablish their value. He loves doing those 1-year deals. Doesn't like to commit to long-term to guys from outside the organization. Got to get to know him first, right? This is a different case. As I said right before the soundbite, guys like this just don't come along very often. Players with all-pro upside at a premium position and a position of need. And so making this into a multi-year deal, in this case, does make sense. For competitive purposes, because if he does have a market out there, someone's going to be willing to give a multi-year deal, maybe a team with much more cap space than the Seahawks have. But in this case, adding on additional years helps to protect the team a little bit more, lessen the year 1 cap hit in case some other needs arise. We may be having to talk about right tackle here near the end of camp, right? And gives the player a chance, I think, to recoup more of those earnings should he be healthy and play up to his expected level. Now, why are we here? How did we get here? Team drafted Olu Oluwatimi in the 5th round last year. He was a highly decorated college center, won the Remington Award as the I'm trying to remember the name of the other award now, but he won the award as the best center in college and also the best lineman in college. But he went in the 5th round for a reason. Had some athletic limitations, some questions about his ability to get to the second level and his kind of scheme versatility. He's a leader, great locker room guy. Teammates love him. John Schneider spoke glowingly about his ability to hold up at the point of attack and how stout he is and how you can't move him. But there was a different scheme and a different coaching staff that he was drafted into. Then this offseason, presumably he's been the first team center all throughout the offseason, OTAs, minicamp. The team brought in Nick Harris to compete with him and to back him up, formerly of the Cleveland Browns, formerly of the University of Washington, played for Scott Huff there. So there's familiarity there, but Huff is an undersized guy. I'm sorry, not Huff, Harris. 6'1", 6'2", under 300 pounds. Now, raised my eyebrow a bit at the scrimmage on Saturday when Harris went out there with the ones instead of Oluwatimi, flanked by Laken Tomlinson and Anthony Bradford on the first team. Some clarity since then that the reason there was Geno Smith wasn't playing on Saturday. It was Sam Howell. Sam Howell's more familiar, has been working more closely with Harris on the second team. They wanted to keep that familiarity for the most part. And today, back out at practice, Oluwatimi running with the ones. However, after practice today, McDonald asked specifically about the center position. And whereas up until this point, the verbiage has been Harris is pushing or competing with Oluwatimi for the position. Now he was proclaiming it as open. The team also cut Mike Nowitzki today, undrafted free agent out of Penn State, center, who got some solid reviews early in the offseason. They signed Jalen Sundell, North Dakota State, a couple of weeks ago. I commented in my recap of the scrimmage from Saturday how good he looked, albeit running against 2s and 3s, and how he was more similar in build and profile, athletic profile, to Connor Williams. That may be a style that they're looking for. And now, for all intents and purposes, it sounds as if Connor Williams to Seattle is going to happen. Just wanted to hop on and react to that, kind of get that out to you. One other thing, right before the part of the soundbite that you heard, Joe Rose said, hey, when I was trying to get you on the show today, trying to flip you on here, and then caught you in Seattle, and then Rosenhaus didn't really pick up on that or expand on that. But it sounds like Drew Rosenhaus and his brother, maybe, as well, who run the agency together, that they very well might be in Seattle today. It was a telephone interview, as you could tell. That would certainly indicate that negotiations are serious enough, and they're trying to drive this thing to the finish line. So something to watch. Certainly, I will keep you updated, and if anything does become final, you can follow me on Twitter at Seahawks Forever. I'll react to it here a little bit later today. In fact, if you're watching this live, in just about an hour, Brian Nemhauser of Hawk Blogger, Real Hawk Talk, Hawk Blogger Mornings. He is a credentialed member of the media this year. He is at practice. He is doing interviews. He is up close there. We'll be able to get his immediate thoughts, things he's hearing about that himself, and also what he thinks of that. He has some pretty strong thoughts on what he saw from that offense at the scrimmage on Saturday. And we were going to already talk quite a bit about offensive line versus defensive line, and how to kind of assess the performance of the offensive line given how dominant the defensive line has looked so far in camp. So that's going to do it for this live shot. But I'll be back in a little bit later today on the YouTube channel. Be sure to subscribe there, of course. Hit the bell for notifications so whenever I post an episode, you know first. And follow me on Twitter at Seahawks Forever. We'll see you in a couple hours. Thanks for watching.